How's it going, guys? You know what time it is. Time to play the game. So today I'm bringing you a game called Heart of Crown by Japanime Games. It's a deck building game for 2 to 4 players. Basic concept of the game is that the king has brought a new era of peace to the land, but before he could name a successor, he fell ill and died. So now it is up to the princesses to compete against each other for the enthronement. But you as the player are not playing as the princess. You are a dignitary of the empire. You're just trying to support one of the princesses and making sure that she becomes the ruler of the land. Pretty simple. As for the general rules, there's not too many, but we're going to go over them just to make sure that we understand them. So the objective of the game is to back a princess and be the first to hold a coronation ceremony. Each player's starting deck will consist of 7 farming villages and 3 apprentice maid cards. Players will take turns proceeding clockwise around the table, and then when you start the game, each player will have a hand of 5 cards at the beginning. When your turn ends, you will discard both the cards that you've used in your play area and any cards remaining in your hand and draw 5 new cards for your next turn. So in order to progress throughout the game, you're going to use coins to buy cards from the market, which are generated by territories, and add them to your discard pile, thereby making your deck a little stronger. In order to back a princess, you need to pay a number of coins equal to the princess card's backing costs, which is in the top left corner here. And then once you back a princess, you're going to place that card in front of you without adding it to your deck. The area where you place this princess is now called your domain. And then on the turn when you back a princess, you must move 3 territory cards that you've played. Or if it was less than 3, then you place as many as you can into your domain. So for example, like if I choose to back this princess on my turn, if I've played these cards to use them in my play area to buy the princess, then we'll place them in order of descending cost, which mean the top left here. So 6, 3, and 1. These cards I've played will now become my domain. If you happen to have multiple copies of a large city or city, then these copies would be first. So let's say I have a large city, it would be large city, then my farming village, for example. Same thing with the city as well. It'll go into descending order. So for the victory condition of the game, we have it right here. You can place succession cards in your domain to increase your succession point total. So this is how you work towards the win. If you have not backed a princess, you cannot play succession cards in your domain. You cannot both play succession cards in your domain and buy cards from the market in the same turn. So what that means is, like, during my turn, I can still play succession cards in my play area if I've played anything else, right? But I could have to either choose to place a succession card in my domain or buy a card from the market. I cannot do both. So that is what that means. To win the game, you must have at least 20 succession points worth of cards placed in your domain and declare a coronation ceremony. The way you obtain those succession cards is you buy them from the market. So there'll be a basic market and a random market generating. I'll show you what that looks like. When multiple players declare coronation ceremonies, the game goes to the sudden death overtime, as explained to further in the rulebook, somewhere around here. So what overtime is, when multiple players declare coronation ceremony, the game goes into sudden death. Sorry about that. When this happens, players who didn't declare coronation ceremony are out of the game and skip their turn. During overtime, the first player to reach 30 or more succession points puts their princess on the throne and wins the game. Now, once overtime begins, even if you drop below 20, the game will still continue. And the other way that the game will end is called judgment. If all the Duke, Senator, and Royal Maid cards from the basic market run out, the game ends immediately. At that point, every player will count the total of succession points that they have, and the player with the highest one will win the game. If 2 players have the same amount of succession points that are the highest, then the game is a tie. So it's not too bad. Because it is a deck building game, we do have different types of cards. I just turned the page here for now. Obviously, there's the princess cards. This is what represents who you're backing. Action cards, they're like general purpose cards. Attack cards, these are meant to obstruct your opponent or hinder them in any way. Defense cards, these are meant to stop the attack cards from happening. Territory cards, so this is how you generate currency. Succession cards, these are the victory point cards. And calamity cards, obviously from what it sounds like, it is meant to be an obstruction to you, the player. There are main types and subtypes, but that's just telling you like what type of card it is and what the description would be. We do have symbols. These will be on all of the different types of cards. The succession symbol will mainly be on succession cards. The number of this symbol will indicate how many points you're generating. So for instance, this is 6. So if I place this into my domain, then I would be generating 6 points. We have the coin symbol here. This is telling you how much you'll generate in terms of currency or how much something will cost. For the draw symbol here, it'll tell you how much you're drawing according to the insignia here. There are different terms here, but they're very general. As for how to read the card, it's not too difficult. We have the princess cards here, so they'll have the name on the side, the cost up here on the top left, the artwork, and then the ability in the text box. So these are abilities that you can use it during your main phase. The other common cards, action cards, all these will look very similar, but they all work the same. So this will have the card name on the side, the cost in the top left, the ability in the text box, and these are called the link symbols, the arrows on the side of the card. This is how you're able to play multiple cards. We'll get into it right now. The link symbols are pretty easy to understand. So basically when you play a card, the link symbol will create another space for you to play an extra card. So technically you only have one space to play a card. But the link symbols allow you to continue playing extra cards for the turn unless they do not have one, like here. For instance, this card, Infantry Battalion, does not have any link symbols. Therefore, this will indicate that you cannot play any more cards. So if you attempt to play a card after this, then that is not allowed. That's against the rules. That's pretty much it for the general rules. The setup's pretty easy. Make sure you got your princess cards here. You'll have a stack of them included with the box. If you ever went to AX, you probably got this promo. On the back, they'll have the biographies or description of who they are, what they do. And then make sure each player gets their starting deck. There's 7 farming villages, and then your 3 apprentice maids. For the field, this is what it's going to look like. You have your play area, your domain. Obviously, you can set this up however you want, as long as you accord to the zones in your play area. The market will consist of the basic market. There's 6 types. You have the succession cards, your territories. You'll even have the curse card area here. The random market, which consists of your customized deck, or in the back here, they'll give you little suggestions on what kind of random market piles that you can have. This will obviously add to your gameplay element. The princess card area off to the side. The outskirts is just basically removed from play. The turn order, how you play the turn is not too bad. You just make sure that you do your main phase, which is you play your cards, and then you go to your second phase, which you buy cards or back a princess. And we also have this mechanic called a keep card, which is right here. So what keep card is, during your turn, you can take an action card from your hand and place it on top of a territory card in your domain. We call this keeping the card. When you keep a card, it does not go into your discard pile during the cleanup phase, and you can only place an action card on top of 1 territory per. So you can keep a card on each territory, but the card you keep cannot be a higher cost than the territory that it's on. So for instance, we have a large city here. It's cost 6. We keep the card like on the rulebook. If we have this infantry battalion here, this card costs 4. So we can keep a card on this city. If we do have let's say a farming village and we want to keep a card on this, we cannot keep infantry battalion because it has a higher cost than the farming village. So once your second phase is done, you've kept your cards, you've bought all your cards, then you go to your cleanup phase, which you place all the cards that you played and in your hand into the discard pile, and then you draw 5 new cards. Obviously, this keeps going on until somebody reaches the victory conditions, and at the end of the turn, make sure you remember that there is the market refresh phase. If the random market has less than 8 types of cards, at this point you add cards from the supply pile until it has 8 as it did at the start of the game. If the supply pile runs out, the game continues as is. Once the market refresh phase is done, the player's turn is over. So before we sign off here, I'm going to give you a quick demo of what the random market pile would look like and how to set it up, and then also how a turn would proceed. So your random market pile, this is the primer combination that's in the back of the book. You can also just make your own random one. So when you place and shuffle the random pile, you keep dishing out cards until you have 8 different piles. if you ever run into a copy of the same card, for instance, this trading ship here, I did not shuffle, I already obviously set this up. You'll place it in the same pile and keep doing so until that you've reached 8 different piles. There we go. So that's how to set up the random market pile. As for how a turn would proceed, so what the start of the game would look like is that the player will have their 7 farming villages and their 3 apprentice maids. Make sure to shuffle that. They'll shuffle. They'll draw 5 cards. And then they can play cards during their main phase. So for instance, this hand, I have 2 farming villages. I only have 1 space to play. But since I played a farming village and it has a link arrow, I can play another card. And technically I can still play a succession card, but it would not benefit me in any way. So since I've generated 2 cards, 2 coins for currency, I can buy anything from the basic market that costs 2. There is nothing that costs 2. Or from the random pile market. So for instance, I could buy this Rampart here. It's one of the defense cards. This also generates coins and link arrows. There's this card post stores here. Draw 1 card. That'll allow me to draw more cards and play more cards because of the link arrows. After that, it's the cleanup phase. Once you've acquired a card, let's say I get the post stores. All the cards that I've used and that are in my hand will get discarded, and I draw 5 new cards. So this is how a turn would proceed. You keep doing this obviously until you get to the victory conditions and declare coronation ceremony. Alright guys, thanks for sticking with me for this long. It's a pretty lengthy video, and I hope you enjoyed the game. See you next time.